Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Susan Jiroge, and I am your host for Mantle. That is what you are just about to get into, and that is what you're watching right here on KTN Life and Style. Use the hashtag ManTalk and the hashtag KTN Life and Style online so I can see all your tweets and see all your comments, and we can have a conversation as the show goes on. Now, my social media handles is at Sura_comment. Tag me everywhere if you can, and be sure to follow us and tag us everywhere at KTN Home. So it's KTN Home everywhere on Facebook, Twitter, and don't forget you can see our text line, our SMS line right here on the screen, 22151. Labda umaitaka kukuja kama guest, unaonanga Mantalk na unashindwa utatujoin aje. Well, text us right there and we will be able to get right back to you. Now, as we get the show started today here on Mantalk, I always like sharing a message with you guys. And today I found a quote. Now, this quote has to do with a conversation and the topic that we are going to be discussing here today on Mantalk. It says, do not threaten a former partner. Threatening your lover or your partner isn't passion, isn't love or heartache. It's violence and it's abuse, and it is a crime. This is a quote by Mia Yamanouchi. And the conversation we're going to be having today is about crimes of passion. Sit back and be ready to learn. There's so much to learn on this episode from the guests that I'm going to be having with me today. And I want to go introduce them. But before I do, I have to talk to you guys about this wonderful space that we are shooting at. We're shooting today at Sankara Hotel. Wonderful, incredible space that offers you restaurant and accommodation as well. They are located in the heart of the city right here at Westland, close to very many shops, malls and outlets. And they have incredible drinks and food ready for you with a fully functioning gym. So be sure to check them out right here in Westlands at Sankara Hotel. And as per usual, I have to shout out my stylist, Wendy, for hooking me up with this beautiful jumpsuit. Now, let's go and say hello and meet my guests. Ladies and gentlemen, I told you that I'm going to be joined by three incredible gentlemen on today's show, and I'm very excited to introduce them. They are now here with me, and we are going to be discussing crimes of passion. I know. I'm here to learn a lot, just like you are. Join us on the conversation on social media. Use the hashtag ManTalk and the hashtag KTN Life and Style. My guests are also going to be sharing their contacts and their social media handles as we get into the conversation, so you can be able to reach them directly as well. Now, I want to kick off with the gentleman sitting opposite me so he can introduce himself, Sam Karanja.
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Well, I'm excited.
You're excited to be here?
Yeah.
I'm very, very happy to have you here. Now, you are in lifestyle coaching.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you work specifically only with men, or you work with both genders, and what age groups of people do you work with?
I work with people between 25 to 35 years of age, professionals.
Nice.
Yeah.
Those are the youths of Kenya.
Those are the leaders of tomorrow.
It's very true.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Then we are also joined with a lawyer, seeing as we are going to be discussing crimes of passion. We are here with Kidi Mwaga. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Asante.
Also, I love the way you're dressed. I don't usually see lawyers dressed like this. Thank you for representing, and I'm very excited to learn a lot from you.
Thank you.
And then our final guest on the show is no stranger to Mantalk. You've been here with us before.
Yes, I have.
We're going to get you a membership card along with Steve Ligami.
Yeah, that would be good.
Mike Pandaka, resident DJ, man of soul.
Yes.
And good music.
Good music, yes. And I'm a soul man, so yeah.
Well, I'm very excited to have you guys on here. Mantalk is a great space where I get to learn so much from my guests, and we discuss issues from the male perspective and try and understand, right? Now, as we discuss crime of passions, I want you guys to tell me what you understand, what a crime of passion is, and I want the lawyer to go last, because I know you will give us the textbook definition according to the Constitution. So, Mr. Karanja, perhaps we can kick off with you. What do you understand as a crime of passion?
A crime of passion is a crime committed in the heat.
Right.
Or in the heat of the two people, but in response to provocation. You must be provoked.
Right.
That means it's a premeditated and well calculated. The whole action is well calculated, depending on the two people, three, the way they relate.
Mike, what is your understanding of what a crime of passion is?
Okay. First, passion, it means feelings. There's something that comes with feelings. So when this happens, there's some feelings that are provoked
Right.
that lead to the crime. Yeah. So sometimes it usually happens between people who are supposedly in love.
Oh, yeah.
Or in a relationship, maybe probably a committed relationship, and then something goes wrong somewhere. It could be a one-off thing. It could be something that has been happening over time, and depending on the situation, maybe as we continue to discuss, you'll find that that's probably the relationship has been leading to this.
Right.
That's why we hear about toxic relationships and things like that. Yeah. So it could be triggered by a number of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Mwaga,
Asante.
take it away now.
We all have an idea what crime of passion is, but then it is anything that could constitute assault,
Right.
cause of grievous bodily harm, or homicide. Homicide is murder or manslaughter. But then the key word is that it is committed without premeditation.
Okay.
That there is, you see, when you are prosecuting a criminal matter, there is the act.
Yes.
Then there is a state of mind, which we call malice aforethought.
Okay.
In crime of passion, there is usually that, there is no that, the state of mind is lacking, the malice aforethought. So that assault was committed, cause of grievous bodily harm or homicide, someone was killed.
Right.
But then the defendant, the perpetrator, did not have the state of mind. They did not premeditate. They did not think through. They did not calculate that this is exactly what they want to do. So that crime was committed when someone was so provoked that they did not have a time to reflect on the consequences of their actions. So in the heat of moment, they reacted in a certain way, and that possibly led to either death or cause of grievous bodily harm.
Okay.
Yes, or such other matters that are related to,
yes.
All right. Yes.
So when you're
Infliction of
saying
injury, yes.
it's not premeditated, let me use an example. So it would be, if I enter a situation, let me say me and Mike are having a discussion, and the crime happens because me and Mike get into a heated argument, and then the crime is committed.
Yes.
It means that I didn't think about that before I came into the room to speak with Mike, before we were to have the discussion.
Not exactly. It is usually viewed from the perspective of the defendant, the person who committed the act.
Right.
That they were so provoked that they did not have time to reflect on their actions.
So they just acted and they harmed the other person.
Yes.
Okay.
And therefore, it also means that the court must look at the reasonable, the test that the court uses is that of a reasonable person. That the provocation was of such a manner that a reasonable person would not have restrained himself.
Okay.
Yes, and then it must be a provocation that is beyond words.
Right.
That mere words alone cannot be sufficient provocation for someone to, hide under the defense of crime of passion.
Oh, that's really amazing. So there's nothing that you can say that can justify a crime of passion being committed against you.
Yes.
Oh, that's really good to know. I didn't know
that. Mere
that.
words cannot suffice as provocation.
In like a court of law, it won't work. Oh, that's very good to learn. So now let's discuss the relationships that usually are happening for a crime of passion to happen. Like you mentioned, it can happen a lot between romantic relationships.
Yes.
But can it also happen with other relationships like siblings or parent and child? Will the court still put it under a crime of passion?
Oh, certainly it would.
Okay.
For instance, you see, while crime of passion, for instance, actions that would qualify as a provocation under the crime of passion is that, for instance, someone, a vulnerable member of the society who is under the care of the defendant was being assaulted.
Right.
And then in the presence of the defendant, that can qualify as a crime of provocation that leads to a crime of passion. For instance, permit me to use an example.
Please.
When, for instance, a parent comes into a room and find their underage child sexually assaulted by, let's say, a relative
Yeah, gosh.
or a member of the family,
Yeah.
in that moment, if they act in rage, if they act, they are so emotionally disturbed that they do something like cause grievous bodily harm or just homicide, murder,
Yeah.
or assault, then that qualifies as a crime of passion.
Wow.
But sometimes it also takes place between people who are in intimate relationships.
Okay.
Yes, like a man and wife,
Yes.
spouses.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for that. Mike, you had mentioned toxic relationships. So I want to talk about the lead up to what can cause a crime of passion. You work with a lot of young people who are professionals, and unfortunately in Kenya, the recent cases we've seen of gender-based violence, of crimes of passion, even with the new law that's being considered to be put in to stop relationships between police officers, people who work for the police service of Kenya, it tends to be people within that age group. Very young people, you know, under 35 or even under their 30s. Can you talk to us about, is there a mindset of what's going on in Kenya? Is there a pinpointed problem that the youth need to deal with that is leading to these toxic relationships, leading to people to be violent so quickly?
Mostly it goes also from background of where you come from.
Okay.
You will find that kids who come from urban city are different from people who come from Taita Taveta, like I come from there. So you find exposures.
Okay.
When a girl, let me use an example. When you're
Yes.
called in an university today, you're from Taita, you're very green. You've never heard about love outings.
Yeah, they're
dates.
fresh off the bus. Nairobi by bus.
So this guy comes and approaches and he tells you, let me take you out.
Yeah.
And then they find out you have principles that you cannot compromise.
Right.
They can use drugs to commit crime. So they think, you know, he'll take you the first time, the second time. Then he sees, I am wasting money on this chick and she's not giving it.
Right.
Like I went somewhere to have lunch in town, and I was amazed how young people can think. They planned to drag a girl and have sex by force. So they raped her, 3 of them. 3 boys raped this girl in campus, Nairobi campus. Because she did not give in to a certain.
Yeah, or the belief.
So this crime is committed. In one way, it's meditated. And in another way, it just happens if you disagree to give in. So you can't really stand in a place and say it was done like this.
Yeah.
But mostly it is planned.
Right.
Mostly.
So it's somebody taking advantage, and akuona you're green in the city. You know, you can even tell when somebody's not a Nairobian or is not a Kenyan. You can tell so obviously if you're a local that this person is not with it, and that's taking advantage of the situation. What I want to understand is, especially between the genders, between men and women, what's usually the disconnect of you can ask a lady to go out to lunch and that's it. It's just lunch. And that's all she has said yes to. She has not said yes to anything else if you haven't asked and you haven't discussed it with her. Why would a man plan to take advantage of you and you're so clear that that's not what you want? And there's many other women
Because
in this city.
their thinking capacity is different.
Okay.
They are wired differently.
Right.
Like if you go to a boy who is who understands what a lunch is, he will not think of that. He will want to befriend this girl until she gives him. But there are guys who are just there to waste others.
Right.
Even men. Even the so-called honorable members, I've seen them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want you by force.
Yeah.
I've worked with them as a researcher, and you could see when somebody comes for internship, they go for her.
Yeah.
And they tell you they can fire you, yet you're internship. You're not employed.
Yes, and you've gotten that internship by value of...
By value of your qualifications.
Exactly.
But they don't understand that men are wired differently. But I want to say this, I learned something during the Corona season. Men of my age took a great advantage to the young girls because they could not provide for themselves.
Right.
So it was thought, it was planned.
Yes.
It became a calculation. She takes you out where she knows, where he knows or understands you can't come by foot, or you don't have fare to take you back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially during the lockdowns.
Yes.
She tells you, he tells you, let me take your lunch to Nakuru. and he delays intentionally, that's a premeditated.
Yeah, that is a plan.
It's a well planned.
Yeah, that's very true. Oh, gosh.
Let me make a correction that when you talk about crime of passion
Yes.
in the legal sense of the word,
Yes.
there is usually lack of premeditation.
Yes, yes.
But then when you talk about toxic relationships, there is a lot of things that go on that of course are harmful, that are usually premeditated.
Yes.
For instance, if you are in a relationship with, let's say, a narcissist,
Yes.
a narcissist would definitely subject you to a toxic relationship. And they would subject you to certain things that of course you may not deserve, that a reasonable person may not subject you to, but because they plan it, because that is whom they are.
Yeah.
So when we talk about a toxic relationship, we can then say about premeditation being there.
Yes.
But when you talk about crimes of passion, like let's say homicide, murder, because you know crime of passion in itself is a defense is a defense in murder.
Yes.
There is usually lack of the state of mind. Actually saying that it is a crime of passion means that there is no state of mind.
Yes, it's like the
What we-
person was temporarily insane in that moment.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's
something
the legal
committed in the
terms.
heat of the moment, yes.
Let's look at jail time. When you're looking at a crime of passion and
Yes.
somebody is found guilty for a crime of passion here in Kenya,
Yes.
what's usually the jail sentence?
Well, technically, when someone is found guilty because of a crime of passion, technically it reduces the sentence
Okay.
from, let's say, murder
Yes.
to now manslaughter.
Okay.
And now when it is manslaughter, you know murder was previously a capital offense, and it was the hands of the courts were tied, because it now means that the courts would only award a capital sentence.
Yes.
Life sentence, death, and whatnot. When someone is convicted of having committed homicide, and he pleads the defense of crime of passion,
Yeah.
that he committed the offense in the heat of the moment,
Yeah.
then the court would consider that
And
to
reduce.
award a lower sentence.
Okay.
Like let's say now manslaughter could be 10 years, could be 7 years.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's good to know. So there is gender-based violence, which is a very big conversation right now here in Kenya, and it's happening across all the ages. Even though we have talked about young people, you have said we have, you know, senior members in parliament or in parastatals, or it's sitting in positions of power who are taking advantage as well, and they're a lot older. And then you have now crimes of passion. There's always the conversation of, before you get to court, lawyers are always saying, you know, you should have collected as much evidence, you should have tried to protect yourself as much as possible. Is there situations where these toxic relationships will eventually lead to, you know, a crime of passion situation, but the victims can defend themselves in the sense of collecting evidence, like now what you said, if you're dating a narcissist, or maybe you have an abusive parent or an abusive sibling, like you said, you're somebody who needs care. How do you protect yourself for when you might eventually end up in court? How do you take measures to make sure that this person can go away for what they actually did?
Oh, well, one thing is that you see, in criminal matters, they're usually prosecuted in the name of the state.
Yes.
And therefore, it is the investigative agencies, the police,
Yeah.
who are usually must always be on the forefront. But then, as a victim, let's say we are talking about in the instances of, let's say, rape.
Yeah.
The person, the victim, is advised always to ensure that they do not. Of course, rape does not qualify as a crime of passion.
Yeah. That's totally different.
Yes, someone cannot say that they were provoked into raping someone.
Yeah.
But well, because I have mentioned it, that a victim must ensure that they do not shower, and they go to the hospital the first thing, that they are examined, that they preserve the clothes that they were wearing when they were assaulted. Yes. When they do this, they do not interfere with the evidence.
Right.
But then, because sometimes we want to, the rape may make someone feel so defiled.
Yeah.
They may first want to run and
Shower
scrub
immediately.
themselves clean.
Yeah.
When you do that, you let you give the perpetrator a chance to go scot-free.
Right.
Because there would be evidence will be shall have been washed away.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, now I want us to talk to DJ Mike. As a man of soul, there's always the conversation of age. And I want to understand whether there's a stark difference between the younger Kenyan man and the older Kenyan man. Is it coming from upbringing? Is it coming from the influences around us? Because right now the conversation with crimes of passion or with gender-based violence is the men are the perpetrators and the women are the ones are the victims,
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
And now what's happening is there's cases where it's a young man who, pushed a lady, like there was a story of the lady who was pushed off the balcony in the restaurant. But you also have cases where it's an older couple. So is it that there's a gender disconnect, like there's Kenyan men were just not told, or Kenyan men are very upset right now and there's something that we're not getting, Kenyan men need therapy, or is there a difference between the older and the younger Kenyan man?
I think there's a big difference between the young generation and the older generation, because I think, especially like we had talked about past one of the programs about like the influence of the male figure.
Yes.
Yeah, when you have a male figure that will show you how to treat women with respect, and then there's lack of that. Now you get, nowadays the young generation are learning things from the internet and movies, and like nowadays we have like a lot of even horror movies, and people watch them, and somehow in their subconscious it gets to them, and so young people like to experiment sometimes. So, and then also you get, like you were saying, some guys they drugged a girl. During our time, it was very hard to get drugs. Very
even
hard.
the access.
Yes, access to everything. Nowadays, you can even order online, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. So they get access to a lot of these things. And now that information that they get from the various different sources, online and movies, there's a lot of content that comes onto TV that I see and I'm very shocked. And it happens even during the day. You find that apart from the music, that is shown on TV nowadays, there's content that comes on TV. Like during school holidays, you'll find a certain movie is being shown during the day.
Yeah. And you're like, this content is not appropriate.
And you happen to see this and what? Are these people serious?
Yeah.
And kids get to learn about these things and they see them. So a lot of what is happening now with the young generation is influenced from things like that and the internet, the information that they get.
Yeah.
During our time, at least, we didn't have such. And then we very controlled content, and also our upbringing. Children were brought up, like they say, that the village brings up the child, not just the parent.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how common crimes of passion are. With Corona and everybody being in lockdown and spending way more time at home, do you think they went up in number, or is crimes of passion purely based off of that provocation so that the statistics will stay the same?
Well, one thing is that there are crimes that are committed. I mean, people sometimes want to interchangeably use the word gender-based violence with the crimes of passion.
Yeah, but they're different.
They're different.
Yeah.
Because in gender-based violence is someone, a partner, who turns violent on their spouse.
Yes.
But then it may not necessarily mean that they were under provocation.
Yeah.
Sometimes there is a sufficient evidence to prove that there was a state of mind. There was meticulous planning, for instance.
And they weren't insane. They were well aware of what
they were well aware of what they were doing. For instance, when a husband is sleeping, then a wife goes into the kitchen, well after people have had dinner, then they boil either water, they do not want to make coffee, or they do not make coffee around such time, put this in a mug, go into the bedroom when he's sleeping, pours it and scalds his face. So that is gender-based violence.
Yeah.
It is not a crime of passion.
True.
One thing I would say is that during the COVID-19 pandemic, and when the stay-at-home measures were put in place by MOH, Ministry of Health, we had numbers going up
Yeah.
of spouses who are turning abusive on their spouses.
True.
Yes, and I hope that we are able to put in measures as a country to make sure that people do not die or get harmed in the hands of people they love.
I like that disconnect as well for everybody that's watching. We're not saying that the two of them are the same,
Yes.
the gender-based violence and crimes of passion. How often do people go to crimes of passion as defense for if they're taken to court for murder or for manslaughter? Is it something that happens a lot in Kenyan courts, or it's very rare?
Well, it happens a number of times in the courts, but then you see the court relies on the evidence to demonstrate, because the court looks at the series of events leading to the commission of the crime. If there qualifies to be said that it was a crime of passion or there was a premeditation.
Yes.
For instance, if let's say a man is killed in the house of the defendant, he is found naked, he is found with condom still stuck on the penile shaft.
Any contraceptive?
Yes,
Yeah.
that definitely means that, that was a crime of passion, because the man, it demonstrates that the man walks home, finds a stranger in his house, finds him naked, and finds him wearing contraceptive. And that therefore would make a reasonable person
Attack this person.
conclude that certain things were happening. And the courts have always held that spousal infidelity
Right.
qualifies as one of the causes of crime of passion. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But then you see, if let's say we were having coffee with my brother, Dr. Sami
Yeah.
Karanja, and then
One of you is found harmed.
yes, then I choose to hit him with a bottle.
Right.
Apparently because he said something.
Yes.
That does not qualify as a crime of passion, because the courts have held that words alone do not qualify as crimes of passion.
Wow.
I mean, as provocation.
As provocation
yes,
enough for
yes,
a crime of passion.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's so key and so important, because
Yes.
I thought words would qualify. Somebody can say something crazy to you, but it's important to know that the courts hold that in account. Like, even us as human beings, you should know nobody should ever say anything to drive you to do anything to
Yes.
them. You can always walk away, you can always stop listening. There's always another option
Yes.
as opposed to attacking or harming the person. Sam Karanja, I want you to talk to us about the red flags that people should look out for when we're talking about a situation where you can end up in a toxic relationship or in a situation where somebody can be violent against you. But Mr. Karanja is going to be giving that response when we come back from the break. Keep it here on Man Talk. You are watching KTN Home. Use the hashtag Man Talk and the hashtag KTN Life and Style so we can see all your tweets on social media.